Welcome to Brad Summers. And this morning we are meeting via Zoom, and we're very glad to be able to do that. Brad is a brother in Christ and a minister in Halifax with Pax Church, one of our sister churches. And some of you have met Brad over the years, and there are some who haven't yet. And so we are glad to be able to reconnect and to hear what God's doing. So Brad, tell us in these days how things are going with you and the church there in the north part of Halifax.
Thanks. I appreciate being asked to do a little quick interview with you, Andrew. You and I have known each other for a long time. Like, we're old friends now, almost right out of high school. And God's been good, man. I mean, God's been good in this leading, directing, shaping our lives, your life, my life, and keeping us kind of interwoven in what he's doing. Appreciate your church, Main Street there, and how they've cared for us and have always kind of kept us on the radar. And you've done a great job of just connecting in, especially over this last year, throwing us a text or whatever, a phone call or conversation, see how we're doing. It's been a year. Well, it's been 2 years, really, or at least we're on second year. It's been quite a journey. I know it's been a journey for everyone. God has been gracious, though, in the fact I was thinking this out the other day. It was 14 years ago, March, that kind of the seeds of what we had hoped or thought about were beginning to be planted. And then 13 years ago, we began to, we planted those seeds and began to cultivate it. So the church has been trying to grow, mature for 13 years here at Pax. So in the North End, and it's been a lot of change in the North End and a lot of change in the context of the church. We're on our, just a quick snapshot, we're on our 5th location, still in the same neighborhood. So we're meeting at renting a church now from another church organization. We meet usually in regular world, we meet in the afternoons on Sunday. But throughout that whole time, there's been a drastic shift, oftentimes in even our congregation makeup. Moved from our family to one other family, to Nevin and Amanda Doncaster joined us shortly thereafter. I think we had 3 families when they were there. Well, we were the only one who had a family at the time. They had no kids, so we were the only one who have kids. And now we're somewhere around, we have about 80 who are regular attenders, and a ton of little kids. I'm probably, Shelby and I are kind of seen almost as the mom and dad of the church. We're in the upper echelons of age group for the church makeup. So, which is strange. So, like, we're probably the 3rd or 4th oldest in the whole church. The rest are just young.
You remember when we were young, and that used to be our identity, but now
now we're the old guys in the church. That's right. So and God's been super gracious in that. We've seen we've had a lot of street level ministry here among those who are struggling through secular poverty and at-risk behavior and those kind of things. And we still have a significant amount of ministry in that regard. But the North End has changed a lot too. There's lots of lots of what some might call progress. Lots of places being bought up, and new apartments and condominiums being built, so which they call gentrification. So a lot of that happening. In the same note, it has a historical side to it where I don't think the poverty side of it, if you attach it all the way back to Africville, will ever be able to be moved out. And not that the city wants to move people out, but as cities transform, the cost of living goes up in those areas. So we've seen that in our end of town. The cost of living is going up. Rental is crazy right now. Buying a house, you put it on the market and you get the bidding wars. Houses have gone for $20,000 to $30,000 more than they were on the market right now. So it's a little crazy in that regard. As far as the makeup of our church, lots of post grads right now. lots of young families, handfuls of low-income seniors who live in low-income housing, the city housing, handfuls of like high-risk addicts, former prostitutes, those kind of things. But our basic central makeup is kind of that 20 to 33-year-old hipster North End kind of person who's just kind of getting started in life in many ways. So that's really what has happened. And out of that, we've seen another church start with Pete Lindeman, which many of you know, in the Valley. And that church has morphed into from a church plant to a church renewal. They've come alongside of Canning Baptist Church and have merged with them and are really trying to bring renewal to that area in Canning. That's been a learning curve for all of us as well. But we hold the financial responsibility for Pete and his family as a church. Our elders are his surround team. So we meet on a once every, I think, 5-6 weeks to check in, to talk about goals, to pray about other families coming alongside of. That's one of the big things we're praying for right now, is that we'd see other families. We should be praying maybe from Sackville, New Brunswick, other families from Sackville, New Brunswick, who would come along, who would move down to the Valley, come alongside of Pete and Alicia, and really invest in that renewal. There's some real good traction right now, but it does need several other families who can come alongside of them. So that's one of the things we're working on for sure.
So, and Ryan and Joanna Scaling and family are in that same area, and a lot of our people would know them. And so that's pretty cool. In the PAX DNA is intentionally doing church planting. And so whether we can afford it with the people or the dollars, we're still going to do that in order to see churches planted for the glory of God. And so more recently, you've had a couple come and an intern with you, and they're planning to start a church. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So we started this thing a couple of years ago, almost 2 years ago now, called a residency. So it's a church planting or church renewal residency. So the idea is do like a pre-assessment of a couple who might be really interested in a ministry, a church planting or a church renewal ministry. Bring them in, have them officially sign on, give them some piece of a salary. So we don't pay a full salary. We only just really started doing that for me in the last year and a half. But we do pay some salary for that. And then the resident also has to, have a part-time job, part-time role. And so we do a pre-assessment. They stay with us the idea is it's a 2-year residency, but the first year is kind of a character evaluation, begin to see what is the DNA of planting, what is the DNA of renewal, come alongside of our local church. We'd love to do this with other local churches that are in a healthy place too, allow other residents to come alongside of other healthy churches, just kind of help oversee and encourage it. And then as they go through their first year, we move them to a place where they're going to move either through an eldership assessment or a church planting assessment. So eldership assessment regarding renewal, church renewal, or church planting assessment regarding planting. So we do that for 2 years. So Andrew and Kayla Arden, who grew up in Nova Scotia, was pastoring for a few years in New Brunswick, was beginning to think and pray through this. It's really interesting. It's a great story, which I'll have to shorten, but a great story because they were students at MBBI, and they came as not a married couple, obviously, but as individuals to a mission trip here in Halifax many years ago. And kind of Andy began to think it through and kind of got the church plant possibility, urban setting kind of plant bug. So I mean, you can catch all kinds of things now here, but that was one of the things he caught several years ago coming. So it's been great. I mean, this is the first residency we've done. We've learned lots of lessons, but it's tracking really well. So hopefully in the next 18 months is what we're looking, year to 18 months, we'll see another church plant in our city in Spryfield. That's where they ended up moving, which is another story of God's grace. Right before COVID hit, right before the first lockdowns, and it was their third location in the city as they were trying to get established. They ended up finding something in Spryfield, and that was where we were praying about the possibility of planting next. So they're right in that neighborhood, have been there for the COVID years, and are, really on a good path. They're going through a church plant assessment, almost done with that right now. And then the next, I would say, 8, 9, 10 months, they'll really move to gathering a core team, which would be from our church and then other people around them, or people from Main Street, for instance, who might want to move here and partner with us. We'd love to have them come to Spryfield.
Right. Okay. So we are hoping once the border opens up to book Andy to come to speak at Main Street and to share a little bit more. So that's something that we can be excited about. But I wanted our people to hear from Brad just the beginnings of this, because it's pretty exciting. Spryfield is not the place where you're going to go if you're going on a vacation necessarily, or you're looking for a summer cottage. And so this is a place where we say God is at work, God cares about people. It's not about my personal comforts, it's about the gospel outreach, and that's what's happening in Spryfield.